The Municipal Farm is a 400-acre site in the heart of Kansas City, which has recently garnered care and attention of the city, surrounding community, and partnering organizations. But it hasn't always been like this. Its story begins over a century ago.
It's not always a pretty history, but it's still kind of an interesting range of uses and activities that happen on this site. Well, the most of the property was used by the jail and the agricultural uses that were affiliated with the jail. Right, so they ceased all the farming operations in the late 60s. They built a new jail here, which has since been demolished, and so it left the vast majority of the property unused and unattended, and that invited all kinds of other uses. The city tended to bring things here that it didn't have other places for, right? There was some contamination, as I understand it, on a very small site. That one incident put a reputation of a contaminated property over the entire 400 acres. And that's not really fair to what occurred here. So we had the landfill, we have the jail, we had a police firing range on the other side. We have a field on the other side of 435 where the police bomb squad detonates suspicious packages and things like that, right? So just a long history of uses that just aren't very neighborhood friendly. And there is a neighborhood right next to this property and has been.
The future of the municipal farm was forever changed when the city proposed a tow lot be built on the site.
That had a big response from the neighborhood, a big negative response from the neighborhood, which garnered a lot of media attention and citywide attention on this property. It was kind of the final straw for the neighborhood saying, you're bringing all these different uses to us over all these years that negatively impact our neighborhood. We're not taking one more of those things. And you need to provide us with a plan for how you're going to use this 400 acres in a way that no longer impacts us in a negative way. The first thing we did was to build this community garden plan. We didn't know what exactly we were going to do with the property, but we knew that we wanted to have some agricultural use on the site. It used to be a farm was our mantra, so maybe it should be a farm again. The woman who ran the jail had a plot in the community garden here because she just had some connection to this site. And not only was that sort of a good faith initial effort for the neighborhood to understand that we were serious about no longer bringing them jails and tow lots and landfills and things like that, that we were serious about bringing uses to them that we felt were beneficial for the communities. The demand for people to have a plot of ground to grow things on is pretty high. And I think it's more than just a place to grow things. It's a place where they can come and socialize and talk to other gardeners.
The community garden was a great effort, but it was only the beginning. One of the city and community's goals for the municipal farm is habitat restoration. At the confluence of the Blue River and Brush Creek lies a particularly special area of the municipal farm where this goal was realized.
I think it was always part of the farm property, and it was farmed when the jail was in operation here. But as of the late 60s, all of that stuff stopped, and it was kind of turned back to nature.
You would think turning land back to nature would be a positive thing, but the area became overgrown and completely infested with invasive species.
The first time I went down there, we had machete and we were hacking our way through the underbrush.
Oh my goodness. This is an absolute gargantuan specimen. I actually don't think I've ever seen one that big. Honeysuckle, Lonicera machii, is extremely devastating to our native ecosystems for multiple reasons. This guy right here, he'll get up anywhere to 15 to 20 feet tall, and they grow out like an umbrella. And so that umbrella shape really stops the sunlight from hitting the ground. It really decreases biodiversity. Trees will drop their fruits and they can't germinate. Over time, you'll see the trees starting to die with no replacements. And so eventually you'd have a complete loss of canopy trees as well, leading to a monoculture of honeysuckle. It quite literally would be a honeysuckle forest, which would support little to no life.
In 2019, the Heartland Conservation Alliance partnered with the city to tackle this species and restore the land.
Heartland Conservation Alliance has been involved with this property for over a decade. Some of our founders were involved in sort of the sustainable reuse planning that occurred back in 2012, 2015.
As we began thinking about habitat and ecosystem restoration, we started with a very preliminary plan to try to determine what types of habitat exist out here, and could we and should we restore those. Then we had to come up with a much more detailed assessment and a more detailed plan to actually figure out what the restoration would look like in each of these areas. And this plan, and this process took over 15 years. When we incorporated Heartland Conservation Alliance in 2012, this became one of our major projects for Heartland Conservation Alliance.
We, with the city, were awarded natural resource damage funds through Missouri Department of Natural Resources to do a restoration project on about 28 acres of the more than 400 acre municipal farm.
Something was finally going to be done with the land, but it was going to be a challenge.
This area where we are standing right now was completely impassable before it was restored. I mean, we call it jungle, and it really was like a jungle. And we were amazed to find out that it was 90% honeysuckle, that there really was very little native tree canopy in this area.
First thing you want to do is you're going to want to come through and you're going to want to remove these guys, right? You're going to want to remove your invasive species. From what I know, this property was pretty bad in terms of canopy coverage and just straight density of this guy.
Most of the honeysuckle removal that happens in Kansas City, and I'm sure elsewhere, is done by volunteers by hand, or maybe small crews of trained professionals with some equipment. But in this case, we had to remove almost 30 acres of invasive honeysuckle. So a bobcat with a large grinder on the front of it literally came through and mowed down acres and acres of honeysuckle, because that's almost all that was here. So a very different process, but really satisfying.
Next step is you're going to want to sow native seeds and put native plants into the ground so they can combat the Amur honeysuckle when they try to come back.
The restoration work that began in 2019, it just yielded immediate results.
This is a functional ecosystem now. We're starting to get native grasses in the ground that have really deep roots. We're getting some more saplings starting to turn into trees.
The contractors who were out here said wildlife returned within hours. So birds, deer. So that was amazing to see how quickly nature moved back into this area.
There's a noticeable uptick in songbirds and other wildlife that we wanted to encourage here.
We actually have beavers on the property now. They've been wrapping around, taking out all of this vascular tissue here to kill this tree, and they've been doing it with plenty of them here. Now, I don't necessarily know where they're building their dam, but just the fact that we have a mammal like that in this area is awesome. They also did some things such as creating vernal pools, which is an ephemeral pool, meaning it doesn't hold water all year long. And those are vital for certain species of frogs and other amphibians. And naturally, they would have occurred in areas like this when we had bison. Bison would get in the mud, they'd roll around, they'd take little baths or whatever, and they create these little indentions in the ground that would hold water periodically throughout the year. And with the removal of bison from this area, they're extraordinarily rare, so when we do come across them, they are very important to ecology.
So the vernal pools are so interesting because it was literally an experiment. And the idea came from Jill Erickson, one of our other co-founders for Heartland Conservation Alliance. And she thought, hey, why can't we just create one? If we've got a bobcat and a bucket, let's just dig a few holes in the ground and see what happens. And within 2 hours, they were full of water and they were teeming with amphibians.
The difference was remarkable.
It's hard to believe the restoration area now used to look like this.
When you look at the adjacent property, it is just totally overrun with bush honeysuckle.
The most significant part of this property is the entirety of it all.
So the habitat value of this area is so high because it's a really large habitat patch. I mean, on this side of the interstate, we have almost 300 acres of land. The variety is the other thing that's really important.
We've got floodplain land, we've got forested areas, we've got wetland areas.
So that combination of habitats really creates a full ecosystem for individual species but also it provides the interaction, all of the different ecosystems and all the different species, which makes it so much more valuable.
You look around and there's not much natural space here anymore. And so you get an area like this, around 30 acres of just natural space. It's rare. It truly is rare in an urban setting like this.
There's just not a lot of good quality natural habitat in this area. It's very industrial. Having any sort of respite and habitat for the native fauna is important. And I think it's even more exciting because it shows that even in the most industrial, heavily humanized and used part of our watershed, we can still have fantastic ecosystem that we can benefit from, the natural communities can benefit from.
It's also just a more attractive place, more appealing place, an inviting place, in addition to the ecological health, too. It's a real attribute. It's a real asset to the community, and we need to do a better job of letting people know it's there and doing a better job of giving them access to enjoy it, too.
It always seems to surprise people that we have natural spaces like this so close to downtown.
And you can see the proximity to the stadiums here. And people who are driving by to go to the stadiums drive right by this property, thousands of people, and don't even know it's here.
Because it truly is a rare thing to have such an amazing space full of native grasses and species like coralberry just at your feet here next to the pavement. People love coming out here. They love seeing the beaver activity. I think people just really like getting outside. And it makes it so much easier when we have these spaces that people can actually take 5 minutes out of their day instead of an hour to drive to a space like this, right?
It has massive potential. It's just finding the right partners like HCA, like Casey Community Gardens, to help begin to realize some of the things that we'd envisioned in the sustainable reuse plan.
Certainly want folks to have access to quality natural areas so that they know what a quality natural area looks like.
We've started over there, but certainly this area, just looking around us at all the honeysuckle you can see that there's a massive need for some habitat work and restoration work on this side of the property as well.
We need to expand it, follow the water over to the west side so we could protect those other marsh and open water areas.
I think it's really important when we're talking about natural areas to realize that humans have already messed with just about every natural area in the world, and especially in our more urban areas. Even sort of quote unquote untouched natural areas we've touched because birds and other wildlife are moving invasive plant seeds into those areas and helping encroach into those. And so it's not enough for us to preserve natural areas in our communities. We really need to restore them and conserve them.
We'll continue to work with our partners like Heartland Conservation Alliance to find funding and other partners to help us continue to increase restored habitats on the property.
It's just a fascinating place to work.
This is just an amazing property. And I'm excited to see it continue to grow.
The success story of the Municipal Farm, how the community inspired change, and how the labor of many revived and freed part of the land is far from over. Change begins by planting a seed. Then, we must all work together to nourish it.